Hello, I'm Helen Bradley. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to process an image in Lightroom, saving both the image, which is a little bit underexposed, and a really nicely exposed sky. Before we get started with the tutorial, let's look and see what it is that we're trying to do. This is the completed image, so I'm just going to wind it back and show you the image as it was before I started working with it. Well, you can see that the sky is reasonably well exposed. This building here is a little bit overexposed, but the statue is well underexposed. It's the kind of image that's really hard to shoot because you've got a really dark statue, lots and lots of light happening in the background, and the camera's lens really just can't handle it at all. So it sort of throws some sort of solution at it, trying to get the best exposure that it can get. But as you can see in the histogram, there's nothing wrong with the exposure. It's just that the image isn't nearly as good as it could be. And we're going to see how we can make the image look like this, where we're actually got really good lights and darks in the statue, but we've also recovered some of the blown out detail in the building, and we've kept the sky. So I'm just going to the before and the after. So we've kept this sky. I've actually boosted a little bit, but if you don't want to boost it so much, that's fine. I'll just show you how you can keep your sky intact in this process. Here is the original image, and to process it, we're going to start by increasing exposure just a little bit so that we can get a bit of detail back in the statue. We may also want to work on contrast. We can either reduce contrast, which you can see is giving us a little bit more statue detail as well. And if we increase contrast, well, we're just losing that detail. So I'm actually going to back off contrast a bit just to try and get some of the beautiful textures in this statue. Now, highlights is going to help us recover these blown out areas. So I'm going to bring highlights down a little bit to try and recover some of this building. Shadows in a positive direction, lightening the shadows a little bit, is going to bring back a little bit more detail again in this statue. So I may want to increase my shadows just a bit. I want a white and a black point, so I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key on a Mac and just drag on the whites, because what I want to do is to start seeing the very faintest amount of white in the image, or perhaps just below where that is. I think that this is pretty good because as soon as I wind it up, I'm getting big areas of white that I just don't want. So I'm going to back it off just below that value. And then for blacks, I'm going to do the same thing, hold the Alt or Option key and just drag this time to the left to try and find some black pixels, which are appearing gradually on the left of the screen. I'm a little bit happier with some black pixels in this image than I am with white, because black pixels are ink on paper, white pixels are not ink on paper, so I'm trying to protect against having blown out areas on the image. Now at this point, clarity and vibrance might help us a little bit. Clarity is a mid-tone contrast enhancement, and it'll give us a bit more of the striking color in this statue just by virtue of increasing the contrast in the midtones, because this is pretty much the midtone area of the image, these lighter areas of green here. And vibrance will also boost that sort of greeny blue a little bit. So let's see how far we've come. I'm just going to press the backslash key, which is a before and after. Well, we've certainly managed to recover the statue detail, and the statue's looking pretty good. In the background, we've actually managed to recover some of the detail in the buildings, but I think that we could get even more, and I certainly want to get this blue sky back. This is the before and this is the after, and you can see that the sky has washed out a little bit. Well, the easiest tool for this particular image to recover the sky is the color tool, so I'm just going to click here on it. Now, if you're confused, color and HSL are exactly the same thing. It's just a different arrangement of the sliders. In HSL, everything is arranged by hue, and then saturation, and then luminance. Whereas with color, everything's organized by color. So I just find the color one a little bit easier because I know really well right now that I need to isolate blue. So I'm just going to click on blue, and now we have the sliders for blue. Well, we did until I got everything there. Let's just go back to the blue. And what I want to do is to increase the saturation in the blue. So I just want to make the blue sky a little bit more saturated. And let's test that with the backslash key. And you can see that the before and after are pretty close. We're seeing pretty much the same blue in the sky before and after, and you can tweak that to suit. I'm just dropping down the luminance a little bit to see if I can get an even better result. Well, I'm pretty happy with that. While I'm here, I'm also going to target this building and just see if I could get a little bit of value back in the building here. So I'm just going to increase the saturation in the oranges and perhaps just drop down the luminance a little bit. And it's probably also in the yellows. So again, a little bit more saturation in yellows, a little bit darker in the luminance, just to see if I can get a little bit more in the orangey yellow part of the building. And let's click the / key again. This is the before and this is the after. So what we've done with our processing to date is to retain some of this background detail as it was out of the camera. This hasn't changed a lot, but we've been able to better expose this statue. Now to finish off, I'm going to the detail panel because this image was shot, even though it's in bright sunlight, it was shot at 800 ISO. So it's got a lot of noise in here. You can see that there's a lot of color noise, adjacent pixels that are multiple colors. So even though Lightroom on DNG and RAW images will default to 25 as a color noise reduction setting, I think that this needs to be up closer to 50 for this one. It's really, really noisy, and it's also got luminance noise because what we're seeing now, what's left over once we remove the color noise, is luminance noise. So I'm going to crank this up. As always, noise is a compromise. As soon as you start reducing noise, you're flattening and evening out the detail in the image, so you're ending up with a less detailed image. But you know, this is a statue. There are no real angles in this statue. And I think we'll be able to fix the little bit of loss of detail that we've had in reducing the noise through sharpening. So I'm going to click here and then click on her eye so that I can see her eye in the little viewfinder here. And I'm going to boost the sharpening all the way up to start off with, and then I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key and just see where my radius values are. Well, I'm going to need to increase this to a fairly high amount because the image is a little bit soft. I'm thinking probably a radius of 2 is going to look reasonably good on this image. And then for detail, I want a really low value, so I'm going to wind this right back to about 6. And finally, for masking, just going to hold again the Alt or Option key, drag on the masking slider. Now in this case, I just want to limit the sharpening to the edge detail in the image. So I'm going for quite a high value, probably something between 85 and 90. So I'm getting a little bit of the buildings in the background sharpened, and also obviously along her profile, but also some of the elements on the plait on her hair and around her eye and nose. So I'm going to let go the masking slider, and now I can just back off the sharpening because that's too much sharpening, but I just did want to see the effect on the image. So somewhere around 70 to 85 is a pretty good sharpening value. So let's see the before and the after. We've managed to preserve a lot of the detail that was in the original image, but we've better exposed the statue, and she's looking a whole lot better now than she did before. I'm Helen Bradley. Thank you for joining me for this video tutorial. Look out for more video tutorials on my YouTube channel, and consider subscribing to my channel and you'll be alerted when new videos are released. And visit my website at projectwoman.com where you'll find more tips, tricks and tutorials on a range of applications, including Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator and a whole lot more.